Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeff Seymour at the National Civil War and Naval Museum, and once again we are here with our good friend Lawrence Jones, who comes out and does all sorts of programs for us. He is a tremendous talent in putting together not only the knowledge of period instruments, but finding or making his own representations of many of the items that would have been found on a ship, in the Army, or just everyday life. Mr. Jones, would you tell me about this piece that I'm holding right here in my hand?
Absolutely. This would be a battle axe. This is used not only in shoring parties, from shore landing parties. When you go on land, you want to forage not only for wood, you want to forage for water, and whatever else. But also when you're boarding a ship, because all these sailors have to go through drills, boarding drills, anti-boarding and boarding. When they board a ship, you want to cut through the netting, the rope, that keeps you off of the opposing ship. In order to cut through it, you're going to need a battle axe. Once you get through that netting, then it can be used either end to destroy or crush the skull of the sailors that you're going against. You either want to sink their ship or you want to take their ship as a prize. So that's where that would come in handy.
So what you're really saying is that it's a tool and a weapon.
It is, indeed.
Okay. Well, what's this long pole sitting out right here?
That is a pike.
Pike.
You have what is known as pikemen. You have a front line defense and you have a rear defense. The front line defense has the weapons. They have the cutlasses and they have the sidearms. So that's your front line defense. If the opposing sailors are coming aboard your ship, that rear defense is the pikemen. If you get through that first line, you've got to deal with those pikes. And those pikes are designed from early periods, long before the Civil War. They're designed to run through an enemy and just gut him. So it's very, very deadly, very damaging.
That's nasty. Well, Lawrence, we've got these big
They're big,
things.
aren't they?
They're really big. They're really big. What pray tell is this?
These are designed by Confederate Lieutenant John Mercer Brooke, who designed the Brooke guns that we have, by the way, out in front of the museum. Two of them in which came off of the CSS Jackson right behind us inside the museum. Those 7-inch Brooke guns have a range of 5 miles. They are huge guns, weighing 15 to 18,000 pounds each. And those particular projectiles were designed by John Mercer Brooke. These are known as bolts. They're also known as armor punchers. He designed this not with a conical head on it like the example of shell right here. He shaved the blunt nose off of it as designed to punch through armor. When you keep hitting armor on the outside of an ironclad, an opposing ironclad, with these projectiles, after a while, because underneath that iron is wood. If you keep hitting that over and over again, eventually the wood beneath that begins to separate. And then splinters anywhere from 3 inches to 6 feet long could be driven through the bodies of sailors. And did so a number of times. So that's why he designed those bolts.
So
and they weigh 85 pounds apiece, by the way.
So it's not just to crack the iron on the armor, it's to crack the wood beneath it.
Right.
To weaken that structure.
And or sink a wooden ship at a good distance. Very, very powerful guns.
So we're talking about rifle technology.
Rifle technology.
Smoothbore. And a smoothbore would fire a cannonball, right?
Right. Smoothbores were the earlier examples of what the grooved guns, just like the handheld rifle. The grooving down inside made a much more deadlier and much more accurate shot at longer ranges. So this is what these were designed for. The rifling down inside the grooved gun adheres to the brass around the bottom of the base here. And when it sinks into that grooving, that rifling, then it projects out a much more accurate shot.
Well, here you've got some examples of some projectiles.
I do.
If I may.
Yep.
Well, what is this?
That is a piece of this particular shot. This is a solid 12-pounder. And that is an example of shell. Now here you have this same implement, but this is solid and that would be hollow.
So you put the
would have-
gunpowder in here.
Right. So you would have not only the round balls, so many of those down inside that particular projectile, but also gunpowder as well. When it exploded, all that went through not only sailors but soldiers on land as well.
Okay.
So that is a fragment of a shell, and that would do some ghastly damage to the human body.
Well, Lawrence, what is this tiny little thing here?
What's that, Jeff? That is part of a friction primer, and this is used by the lanyard along with the lanyard. Whenever a gun is fired, whether it be a large gun or a small gun that is carried on land, one of the field pieces, the friction primer is twisted in such a way that it has a small tube, a brass tube, and it has fulminate of mercury down inside of it. This is twisted in such a way that when the pin is pulled, much like the pin on a hand grenade today, only this is primitive back during the Civil War, when that friction is pulled from that pin, the friction caused by that causes the spark, which ignites the powder bag down inside. And you'll see examples of powder bags right down there. That powder bag, once it begins to burn, that sends the projectile forward out of the muzzle, the business end of the gun.
Well, speaking of these projectiles, explain a little bit about this display here.
Well, these are both canister shots. Now you have stands of grape shot, what is known as grape shot, and that's a much larger ball and much more deadlier. But canister can be just as deadly as well. This has a range of anywhere from 200 to 400 yards. Canister is used, sometimes double canister, in some of these guns that were used not only aboard ship, but also on land. There is 27 iron balls packed in sawdust down inside one round of canister. 27 balls. When it goes off, it's like a gigantic shotgun shell. And they had larger calibers of canister as well. And then you have down below on the floor there, you have an example of a rope-held, hand-held stand of grape shot. It only has 9 balls in it, but those balls are much, much larger. So it
Than
can,
the canister.
right.
Okay.
So it too is very, very deadly.
Lawrence, thank you so much again for coming out and sharing your knowledge and your collection with us.
Thank you, Jeff. I
And
appreciate
come
you
visit
having me.
us at the National Civil War Naval Museum.
Absolutely.